So the first time I was aware of Una, which was from the play Blackbird, was when Benedict said, "Oh, listen, I've got this. I'm doing this thing with Rooney Mara, and I'll send it across. Take a read." And I took a read, and I was, look, I was incredibly thrilled by the read and the reaction I had to it. So I said, yes. If you're asking, do I want to do this? He said, what are we saying here? You want me to do this? Yes. Do I want to do it? Yes. Can I do it? Yes. I had a really, really strong reaction after reading that. And I knew that they'd had the project for a little while, and they had talked about various guys in the role of Ray. They were looking at guys that were about 15 to 20 years older than I. But when Benedict had gone to Rooney and talked about me, that was working for her too. So that's how it came to be. I hadn't seen the play, and I think that that ended up working to the advantage, because I came at it from a completely just reading the script and going. The process of taking a play and making a film was really largely in Benedict's hands, and really largely handled by him. David was there alongside for cuts and maybe the odd change to lines and stuff like that. But Benedict had said very early on that he did not want to shoot a play. He wanted to translate the material into a film, and so we have the addition of additional characters, of going back and seeing those two, in situ when she is the 13-year-old her. So it's very much, it wasn't like, certainly from my end, and it's not really something that I do. I tend to leave any of those kind of decisions. I don't tend to get involved in those. I'm much more interested in just you give me what it is you want to do, and then I'm going to try and do that there and then, and so it was. The way I think that you tend to approach it is it ends up being really broken down into small component parts, and it's not necessarily something you think about when you are watching, or hopefully you don't, but you tend to just break it down into its component parts and its component shots, and so for any of those you're trying to just do that bit. So in that regard, they're never any different for me in that way. There's never, things like fights and stuff like that, they're different. Fights, sex scenes, etc., etc. They're things where you have to consider other things. But dialogue and camera, then that's then we're in our home turf. You do think about that stuff, like, like what are people going to come at you with about this? But for me, it always gets trumped by, are we going to be able to make it? Are we going to be able to make this sucker sing? And I think when you feel like you've got a chance to make something sing, you're kind of an idiot if you're worrying about, well, are people going to like me, over and above that. Um, so I just looked at, Benedict was involved, Rooney Mara was involved, and you had this script which was just like, oh, and it's a sort of a no-brainer. I mean, most of the things that I'll end up doing are like, they're just like, of course I'm going to do that. I mean, if you get asked to do that, it's like Star Wars. Of course you're going to do Star. I mean, like, of course. Like, what sort of an idiot isn't going to go and do Star Wars? if you don't let that part in, let's say you were watching some documentary and there was a suicide bomber in the middle of it, and he was talking about the way he felt about it and how he, his mum and his family, and how he just wanted them to stop doing it. You would probably come to some sort of empathetic understanding with the guy, and I think that is part of the richness of how do we respond to a situation. And while you can pull back and look at the crime, or the sin, if you like, that someone's performing, it's about the difference between hating the sin or the sinner, as it were, to put it in the old time, Christian context of that stuff. But I also think dramatically, this falls apart if, it's just some guy you get to just sort of hate. That's not a lot of fun for 90 minutes. No, it's not even that. I just think that any given actor or singer or guitar player or painter, they've got the way that they sort of approach things and the way that they are and who they are, and that, you'll see that over any number of things, and you try and mix the ball up here or spin it a bit more this way then or spin it a bit more that way then. But, batsmen, they're going to go clonk and then they're going to hit it more or less the same way. And what you sort of, I think, are looking for is it going to come together in a whole package that is going to work, rather than some, am I now going to be twitchy, like that? Am I going to run around doing something ultimately different? It's not really the game. And no one actually does that. Yeah. No one ever does that. It's this sort of eternal sort of like false wank that we all have. No one does it. I just look at it like a form guide. That's all I'm doing. I'm looking at the piece itself, and then I'm looking at the other people that are involved with it and thinking about the chance of success, or is this something that I want to do. So I look at those blend of things, and then it's like sometimes it's also like being in a taxi. Like if you're driving it around and you've been empty for a while. You've got to have someone, the meter's got to tick. So, there's a lot of things where, if you're driving around these sort of lonely streets and you're going, okay, gotta keep working here. So a lot of it's just the way things happen. But, now at the moment it's sort of rich green grass and, I'll eat that little bit. No, I don't think I'll have that bit over there. But it's a blend of all that stuff. It's kind of is peak hour on a rainy day, and I'm going to go from, Vaucluse to Rudy Hill. That's where I'm going. Yeah. I still hear about things, and I still get, the occasional, I get offered stuff and whatnot from here sometimes too. And I hope that there's a time in the not terribly distant future where I do something or other here. Oh, fuck, that's a complex question. Okay. I think that if you come from Australia, you learn very quickly where you fit in the process of making it. So you've got to be ready to work with the temperaments of the crew a lot more. And when you are in the States, you sort of get that space carved out for you a bit more. And there's a much bigger difference between the cultures, I think, than people realise unless they've spent a bit of time in each of the cultures. But I think the reason that they tend to like Australians is that we tend to be pretty good workers in that way. We tend to come with something, and we just sort of naturally, because we're not born and raised in America, we come with a slightly different vibe, and sometimes that really works, you know, because it's sort of like, oh, that's interesting. What am I watching here? Oh, I mean, that guy sounds like me, but he's not like me. So it's even just something as simple as that. But you know, like they have a genuine capitalist sort of economy, you know, insofar as there's no subsidies, there's no nothing. Something either is going to make money and commercially make sense, or it won't. And that is a profound difference. But I also think that, having said that, that the value of our film industry to our country is much, much greater than the small amount of money that we set aside for it. The flow-on benefits from it are much, much more valuable than the money that gets thrown at it. So here, it makes sense to have, you know, the approach that we have. But yeah, there you sink or you swim.